Hi there. 2020 has been a crazy year. I think we'll all agree. And if you think of 2020 like we're on a boat and we're going through the sea, it feels like there's been wave after wave that has hit us with trouble and different things that have gone on. So whether it's been the pandemic and all that's been related to that, the effect on the economy, and on our education, on our health, or whether it's been the riots we've seen across the world because of the racism issue that has arose once again. Or maybe it's been the fires that have hit across the world in North America and Australia this year, and all the different things that are happening with the environment and locusts coming across the world. There has been great difficulty. And it has felt like one after the other that there has been a wave, and we need something to anchor us in that time, something to give us hope and to hold on to. An anchor is often a symbol of hope. And I looked up hope in the dictionary, and it says that hope is a feeling or expectation that something good is going to happen. And we take inspiration from people like Captain Tom, who has lived a long life, who's lived through wars, who says that things will get better, we will get through this, and we believe it, and there are better times coming. But also hope is something that we put our trust in when we put our trust in someone or something. I wonder this morning, where is your hope? What we're going to ask you to do is turn to the person next to you and just speak for like 20 seconds each and answer this question. Where or what do you, or who do you put your hope in, and why? So we're just going to, if you could pause the video and then answer that question. Where or what do you put your hope in? I don't know what you said, but often the things we put our hope in are the things or the people that are reliable, that have shown themselves to be relied upon in the past, the people that we can trust. But what do we do when the systems of the world are failing, when there isn't any answers? Where do we put our hope then? Sometimes we need to look outside of ourselves to find that hope. I want to tell you about a guy called Horatio Spafford. He lived in Chicago in the 1800s, and he was quite a wealthy man. And he invested some money in a business in the spring of 1871 that he felt was a dead cert. In autumn of that same year, the Great Fire of Chicago happened, and it burnt that business to the ground, and with it all of his investment and wealth. And he'd lost everything. But he continued, but only 2 years later, he was on his way for a trip to Europe with his family, with his wife and his 4 girls. And at the last minute, he got called back and had to do some business. But he said, you go along without me. And so they went, his wife and his 4 girls, over the Atlantic Ocean, over to Europe on a boat. Unfortunately, while they were sailing across the sea, their ship got hit by another vessel. And unfortunately, the ship sank. And many people on board died. When his wife got to England, she sent a message back to Horatio saying, "Saved alone." And as he took the long trip over to meet his wife over the Atlantic Ocean, he must have felt like all hope was lost. And he'd lost nearly everything. But he had a hope, and he wrote a really famous hymn, which is called "It Is Well With My Soul." How could Horatio say it is well with my soul with all that had happened to him? For Horatio, it was a faith. It was a faith in God, his faith in God that helped him. And it was a hope that was beyond the grave.
I'm going to tell you about a guy called Paul. Paul went through loads. This guy was imprisoned a multitude of times. He was tortured tons. He was shipwrecked 3 times. And he was even stoned once. This guy went through suffering, difficulties. He went through the works. But he was still able to say this, and I'm just going to read it to you. We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not disappoint us. To rejoice in suffering seems crazy, absolutely bonkers, but this guy, he had hope. He had eternal hope. It went beyond the grave. This guy believed that there was a God who knew better, a God who could take the difficulties, who could take the sufferings and bring good out of it, who could bring hope. He believed that because of Jesus, there was hope beyond the grave. And he could look forward. He knew that there would get better times. And I know this has been crazy especially for us younger folk. I just finished my A-levels last year, and the uncertainties surrounding what to do, throughout this period has been a bit unstable. So if that was for me, getting my A-level results, choosing to defer uni or go this year, just the whole circumstances in which we are at the moment is just a bit crazy. But for me, I've been really able to get to grips with what Paul has been saying here. That through these difficulties, we are able to persevere. And through that perseverance, our character is able to grow. And that through our character growing, our hope is able to anchor us during this time. And my question to you is, how can these difficulties be an opportunity for us to grow?
And I think one way that we can continue to persevere is just to keep going. I was reading a book in the summer by a guy called Brother Andrew, and he went to visit a friend of his in Lebanon. And Lebanon has also been in the news this year for a massive explosion, but they've had years, decades of being war-torn and bombs and violence in their cities. And this guy, Lucien, he welcomed Brother Andrew to come and visit him. But when Brother Andrew arrived, half of his house was gone. The living room was completely gone. It was full of rubble. And this Lucien, he invited Brother Andrew in and said, "You're very welcome. This is your bedroom. This is where you're going to stay." He said, "I'm really sorry about the mess. I mean, we were bombed just a month ago. But fortunately, we were all alive because we were watching a film in the cellar. But this is a state, but we are going to start to rebuild." And Brother Andrew said to him, "Aren't you worried about being bombed again?" And Lucien said, "We can't live our lives in the rubble and the mess. We have to rebuild with the hope and believing that we're not going to get bombed again. And if we do, we'll just build again because we need to rebuild in the rubble." And I think that's really good advice for us in this time. We just keep going. We keep going with our studies. We just keep on going. And we think about that question. How can our difficulties be the opportunity for us to grow in our character, in perseverance and hope? And we're going to leave you with that question today and that encouragement to keep going. And just to reflect on that question today, how can the difficulties be the opportunity for you to grow in your character, in perseverance and hope?